Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. Tonight we're talking the Flash and Black Lightning, since they've both returned to action. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight,
I'm doing very
Will?
well, Sarah. How are you doing?
I am... There's a reason why I haven't been saying that sentence during the intro, and I figured it out. It only happened while I was saying it. I stutter over it. That's why I've been skipping it.
It's okay. No one's taking points.
Yeah. Did I derail this conversation?
You did not.
And a lot of accusations on this call so far. I'm just saying.
You just walk into it every time, so it's just so easy to do so.
Derailing to introduce our guest. All right, everybody. We know you're sick of hearing our squabbles, so we thought we would finally invite a guest co-host to crash the podcast. Polly is back. How are you doing tonight, Polly?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
You can just referee our usual back and forth.
I noticed.
We've got some issues. I mean, it's post hiatus, and yet we seem to be at odds with one another. Odds.
It happens.
What have you been up to, Polly?
Well, a lot of writing. National Novelist Month for the people that follow NaNoWriMo, and it stands for National Novelist Writing Month. You're supposed to write a whole novel, 50,000 words, in the whole month of November. The whole purpose of it is just to get writers together to keep producing and keep the creative juices flowing. And it's a humongous community right now. It keeps growing every year. It's just amazing. So this is year 10 for me, and just hope I can finish it. November is like the worst time with, Thanksgiving and all these other holidays popping up. But I actually had to write the 50,000 in about 20 days when everybody else gets the good old 30, or whenever they decide they want to get finished.
The good old 30.
I meant, the whole month. So they get the whole month. I don't.
So have you written 10 novels?
I have written more than 10 novels, actually. 4 of them were published about 10 years ago before I started doing this, and the other ones are kind of in my sacred vault that someday I will go back and say, oh, I actually remember writing this, I liked it, and I'll go back and start doing the very long and tedious editing process and rewriting it. The whole deal is that you're just supposed to write and don't worry about what you're writing too much. But actually this year is the first year I'm putting what I'm writing every day on Wattpad. So if you're curious about that, you can find me on Twitter and link it over to there. It's my pinned tweet.
Cool.
Right. Hey, Will, do you still have that Flash costume? Okay, so you're going to need to use it and go and break into the vault, and so we can steal some of these story ideas.
I will do that. Yeah, it's just, I'll just vibrate through the wall.
There you go.
I have faith in you. You gotta put it to use. I mean, that costume was pretty impressive, if I do say so.
It was.
Yeah, I've had it for...
Oh.
It needs a chin strap, but you're fine.
It's lacking the chin strap, but, at least it looks, fits better on my head than the actual costume, but...
Oh. So you're not the fastest bicyclist alive? I mean, that's honestly what I thought. I was like, why is he wearing a crash helmet?
Yeah,
Okay.
Wow, Polly's got some shade tonight. I thought we invited
I'm sorry.
her to be the referee, but wow.
Wow.
All
right. Okay, then. All right. Put it in place.
It's endearing when Sarah talks about costumes, but...
Greetings, nerds. This is Will. We had some problems on the Skype line with Polly, so she dropped off for a little bit so that Sarah and I could talk about Black Lightning, and she rejoins us to discuss the Flash.
All right, so now let's jump over and talk episode 3 and 4 of Black Lightning. Will, what is happening with this family, with this city? What is going on?
Wow, Friedland it's upside down and it's off the hook, and I'm loving what they're doing this season. I mean, it's just the strong. Well, let's see. Let me just take it character by character because there's just so much going on. First, Lynn. So Lynn is working with Dr. Jace, and this Dr. Jace is basically this mad scientist type who has conducted various experiments on individuals with this green light and other things, presumably because one experiment resulted in the loss of 10 people losing their feet and one person dying, and and she is just, I love this dynamic they've set up between them, because you have Lynn who still sees these individuals as humans who have feelings and yes, and the compassion of trying to help them through this project that these individuals have been involuntarily subjected to. And then you have Dr. Jace, who is just this cold, calculating individual who just sees these individuals as commodities to be experimented on and doesn't seem to have a conscience about it. And
right.
It just, again, one of the things we've talked about this show, and one of the things I like about Black Lightning is how it's very grounded, and even though we have all these metas and in this city, it still has some roots and grounding in actual historical or contemporary events, and this one is just being played out right there with Lynn and Dr. Jace. When you think back to the Tuskegee experiments and other experiments that have been done historically on people involuntarily for quote unquote science.
Well, I love that Jace has the potential to be a very, very intense, cunning villain for this show, and I like how they're pairing her off not with Jefferson but with Lynn, and as the introduction. And that moment, I think it occurred in episode 4 actually, Translucent Freak, where Lynn gets this realization that as much as Jefferson is protecting his family from all of the harm and Tobias and just people like him who are using those powers for bad, there's also people like Jace who, just out of pure curiosity and desire to want to understand, but is willing to make like the morally wrong choices in science, are even a bigger threat in a way, because if the government and people like Jace were to get a hold of Lynn's family, they're all at risk. And that's so, and it's a good pairing because Lynn is as much a scientist as Jace is, but they both have a different set of moral standards. So I really like that. I agree with you there.
One other thing about that with Lynn in particular is how back with in Master Lowery in episode 3, she still was seeing this project as something of the ASA. And she made a very, whenever she talked to the agent, I'll just say Bill Duke because I can't remember the character's name, but she was trying to make the point that y'all pulled me into this, and I'm just helping you out because I'm here to help the kids. And then, he just turned it back on her. It was like, no, you own this. And And I think we have the fact that, that Lynn did force her way back into this to work on this experiment for her altruistic or good purposes. And then you get her paired with Dr. Jace and Jace's questionable ethics. It really sets up a very good, like, as you were saying, a good moral crisis and dilemma between these two characters. And also when Lynn was trying to convince her to help them, and Lynn dangled out they had a discussion about the visitation as a way to, I like the way they did that, because it could have been easily to paint this character of Jace as his stereotype and all, but by introducing the fact that she has a son and she's in prison, and dangling that fact in front of her as a negotiating chip, and seeing the conflict and seeing how Jace reacted to that, again, humanize this character that could easily become a caricature.
Right, absolutely. Another character who I've always been on the fence about is Jennifer. And I think out of these two episodes, Translucent Freak is a stronger episode on its own. And it starts right from the beginning. Because I'll admit, male on female violence, it makes me very uncomfortable at times, because sometimes I remember a scene in Cloak and Dagger that we talked about where I was just like, they went too far. That was, I cringed watching it, and it's not that it's bad choreography or anything, it just makes me very unsettled in a bad way, like it's almost too real. And I felt like this scene between Khalil and Jennifer, even though it was a dream sequence, put that aside, it felt like at that perfect balance of superhero action and just adolescent anger. And I really liked it, and I was surprised, and a part of me was like, well, Jennifer, obviously you can kick butt, and this is why people don't like you, because you're just holding back, because it's right there. And I really like that, and I like everything they're doing with the box and the feelings and all of that, and figuring out why she has all of this, and you're starting to peel back those layers more and more, and it becomes less adolescent melodrama and more a kid who's been given this ability, she doesn't want it, doesn't know what it is, and doesn't understand it, which parallels anybody when they're turning 18 and suddenly are like, you're an adult now, figure it out.
And I like the way they're doing this introduction of this character who basically is like the, I guess, Jennifer Whisperer, to help her work through these issues. And but it was a very haphazard way that Lynn and Jefferson introduces this character to Jennifer as a way to engage the therapy, because Jennifer's just out at the park enjoying the day, and then she comes up and like, what's going on here, why are you doing this? And then whenever Jennifer confronts her parents about this, and it was one of those things where that anger of like, and that feeling of betrayal and all these things that have been sort of building up this season, since she's basically, as she said, the only freedom she has at this point is just being able to go around the block to get some fresh air, and that's it. And then her parents doing what they did to help her, but at the same time, it further alienated Jennifer from her parents. And also, it was one of those moments where with Jefferson realizing the consequences of him having these powers, and the very dramatic moment where he, embraces her and says, "I'm so sorry I did this to you," and he just, it's my fault. I didn't want. If I could do anything to take this away, I would. And I guess one of the things that's happening this season, as far as, it's been titled The Book of Consequences, is all the consequences that has unfolded for him having this dual life and not being able to, and not being able to be all things, because he has the consequence of being Black Lightning and saving the kids at Garfield, led to his dismissal as principal.
Well, it's the consequence of revenge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. This thing between him and Tobias is all about trying to get justice for his dad, and which is a very honorable thing to do, but at the same time, it makes you lose focus and makes you unable to see the bigger picture until now. And to go back to your point about that apology moment, what I thought was really fascinating in episode 4 was that great highlight of Jefferson. Yeah, he's very understanding that his actions as Black Lightning and him being a meta and transferring that gene, like, that's a big sin of the father, so to speak, for being a meta and just the genetics involved in that play. But what he hasn't yet realized is how his pride as just being a man, the principal, and having all of that power has now affected Jennifer's life, because now she can't go to school. And yes, Lynn and Jefferson are using the excuse, nope, you have to be homeschooled because you don't know your powers, when the reality is Jefferson doesn't want her to be exposed to the leadership that is occurring, which he despises. And I hope that just as much as we got that moment where he breaks down and says, "I'm so sorry, this is all my fault," that's him as a meta. I want to see the breakdown as him as a father and just a human who is allowing his pride to push her straight into Khalil's arms.
He really, I didn't think about that, but you're right. All these things that he's doing to quote unquote protect her is indeed pushing her into Khalil's arms and especially when the training sequence that they had at the very beginning of the episode, which as you said was very very raw and it's very hard sometimes it's hard to watch that, but at the same time Jennifer and Khalil did have a very special thing. And I think Jennifer, even though Khalil is now Painkiller and is Tobias's lackey, there's still, I think at some level, and I think during that training sequence, the therapist was really trying to get her to realize that she still has positive feelings for Khalil. And she's got to figure out either she needs to put those feelings in a box and once and for all break it off with him, or I think Jennifer still feels that maybe she can pull him back to being the good Khalil that she used to know. And so, and then when you have Jefferson doing all these things in the quote unquote name of protecting her, and Lynn as well, you're right. It does have it's going to have the inadvertent consequence of pushing her to Khalil, and by extension Tobias.
Right.
And again, that's where Tobias may once again have another victory over the Pierce family, and even further fuels Black Lightning's need for revenge. Not only for the death of his father, but the murder of his father, but also now one by one picking off other members of his family. Which I think, and thinking about that too with Anissa and her turn as Robin Hood. And again, getting into these morally ambiguous areas as a vigilante. Because, I think I think Jefferson still, even though he's a very prideful man and has a definite sense of right and wrong, he still has that empathy. Because if you recall, I think it was in the start of episode 3 where the one young lady had the green light episode, and of course the police were ready to use lethal weapon.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But Jefferson, as Black Lightning, he was like, no, we can't. Don't let me handle this. And he was coming out of a place of empathy because she didn't ask this to happen to her. This green light was used on her, and so he still has that empathy. Whereas Anissa, she has a very like black and white sense of like, all these folks in this town, green light, they're just, no, we just got to take care of them. And she doesn't seem to have that same level of empathy, but she has a level of the ends justifies the means by like, going and taking this drug money or green light money and giving it to the church.
See, I don't know if that's right. I don't know if the empathy, I would say that it's empathy, and that's the difference. Now, I know you didn't watch Daredevil season 2, even though I told you to, but I'm going to do a parallel, because there's an epic scene that I swear to God, Will, you have to see eventually, where Punisher and Daredevil talk about themes, right? And the justification, because Daredevil's all about not killing people, and Punisher, he's like, if they're bad, no, they're going to get killed, because that's the only way to eliminate the problem. And I don't know if that's, now yeah, for the Punisher, Frank Castle doesn't have any empathy for the bad guys, but I think it's very similar, and I think the issue is that, because I think if you had replaced Anissa if you had replaced Jefferson with Anissa in that moment with the green light girl, she would have also done what he did. Where they diverge is, how do you treat the enemy? And the enemy isn't the green light people. They know that. The enemy is really Tobias and all of these other people who want to control and want power and just greed. And so I don't know if it's a lack of empathy, but just there's 2 points I want to make. One, I think that when I talk about Jefferson's pride, and I think it's part of the reason why he's making these decisions with his daughters, is because they are his daughters. Anissa wouldn't do that. That's my kid. What do you mean she did this? I raised her better than that. Well, you raised Anissa as a human. Now you're having to face Anissa as a meta. And what she does with that powers is a reflection on him as a father who also has powers. So if you think anybody could raise her correctly, it would be him. So I think that again, his pride is kind of interfering there. And then the second thing is that I think with Anissa, she's honestly fading for me, like as a character. Will, I don't know why, but this Robin Hood storyline, I think, is weak, and in comparison to everything else. And I know it's unfair but it's really interesting how last season she was the character I was drawn to most, and this season I feel like she's been put on the back burner.
That's interesting. One other thing I noticed that, you haven't said is that Jennifer's annoying as much as
well, she redeemed herself in this fourth episode for me. I was like, yeah, like they made the right choices for her character to make her more sympathetic for me as a viewer.
I noticed that. And as far as Anissa, I think where I'm having difficulty with her this season, and I love the banter that Jennifer and Anissa have with one another. And
absolutely,
that scene where they were talking about Anissa and her, relationship choices and stuff. It was just, a good moment as far as just again grounding these characters beyond just being metas and fighting crime and the superficial kind of dealing with the situations. And I think Jennifer, she was the audience there, like, this what you did to Grace was just wrong, and just how she was like, how Anissa all of a sudden was hooking up with the media star and everything else, and you had a good thing with Grace, and and Jennifer and Anissa had to admit that, hey, I was wrong in doing that, and I think where in season 1 Anissa seemed to be the very driven, very upright sister who was in med school and doing all the quote unquote right things and stuff, and Jennifer was the more kind of free spirit. It seems this season Anissa is, how should I say this? I'm just not finding her very likable right now. Just by the way the way she's just conducting herself.
It's like her and Jennifer traded places. And suddenly I'm like, oh, wait a second. I thought I understood these characters, and now all of a sudden I completely feel the opposite the way I did before.
Yeah, because Jennifer, this last season, she was, when she was taking moral stances as far as, and she's doing in a positive way, like helping out whenever they had the demonstration on the campus with the I think the groups and whenever they had the marches in the city with when these issues were coming up with green light and some of the other things, she was a very traditional, I guess, social justice, positive person. Now she's like all of a sudden become the this Robin Hood thing, which I'm
Harriet. Harriet.
Yeah.
I think there's no flaw.
Yeah.
In a way, yes, she's stealing from the greedy and to give to the poor. Is that really a flaw? I mean, there's going to be a moment where she's going to get in way over her head and make a wrong decision, of course. But there's no cracks. I mean, as annoying as Jennifer is, she still has a compelling arc because she doesn't want what she has. And that's something we haven't seen from these shows before. Like Barry Allen, he was like, "Hey, I'm the Flash. It's so cool."
Even now Nora, she's like, "I don't, you held back from me something I would have loved to have."
Yeah, and Jennifer's like, "Well, that's cool, but I had a different picture for my life." And with Anissa, it kind of was like, "This is what I've been looking for forever. I needed this." Because I feel like there's so much injustice in the world, and this is my hammer, and I'm going to use it. And so, and it's not that I have seen that before. It's just that it's one note.
Yes. Very.
And so I hope, now granted, I still think the writing is stronger than ever right now with everything they're doing because it's still so character driven that it doesn't, and we've talked about this earlier on The Flash, these shows do well when they use the character arcs correctly. Don't feel like you have to do everything at once. It gets too thin. It's way too thin. So I'm fine with how it is. It is something that I hope they come back to later on as the series goes forward.
I think they will. I mean, they've shown that they can do that. And the other thing that they are going back to is the relationship between Gambi and Anissa, and again, Gambi sort of playing the role of, I'm going to help you, but I'm going to, but I'm still going to have to tell Jefferson about this, and it seems that if we recall, Jefferson and Gambi, went through a really rough spot last season, and really their relationship deteriorated to the point where we didn't know what was going. We hoped that they would be able to bond again, and they have.
Right.
But we're seeing this again where Gambi is doing some things, and Jefferson, he's trying to again teach Anissa how to use her powers responsibly, and so how much of this interference from Uncle Gambi is going to potentially cause a rift.
Well, I mean, especially when Gambi tells Jefferson the truth and that Anissa is actually his. I mean, that's what I read into it.
You should write some fanfics about Gambi and Lynn.
I don't know why, but it's just this funny thread that I'm going to continue to pull. It just is what it is. But no, I forgot about that. I forgot about that betrayal that occurred, and you're right. Most likely they are setting up for maybe not as big of a rift, because right now Jefferson and the DA are kind of going through their lover spat. But Anissa choosing to go live with Gambi, I think that's going to cause some issues, because again, it's all about Jefferson, the father, and the consequence of being a father.
Mm-hmm. He is. I mean, he is. Yeah. He's a very controlling dad.
Parent.
And we see it all the time. If you're too of a controlling parent, then bad things happen.
Yep. That's our recap of Black Lightning episodes 3 and 4. All right. So let's get into The Flash. We got 2 episodes to cover. We got a lot happening in Central City these days with Cicada. I just like saying it. Guys, Cisco is not dead. Vibe is dead, and Cisco is in hiding. And I thought it was really interesting in episode 4, NewsFlash, that we didn't have any Cisco, and I actually think that this is probably the best episode of the season so far.
Yeah, I have to admit that, and I even commented to someone on Twitter that while I was watching the episode, I didn't miss Cisco. And I think it's just how they've characterized him so far this season as the moping, drunk, sad, wallowing Cisco. But I did rewatch Death of Vibe this evening, and of course I did. Well, it's been a couple of weeks, and I just wanted to refresh my recollection. There were some good classic Cisco moments, but again, I think one of the things that they showed in NewsFlash is that some of the supporting characters can take a week off, and quite frankly, it helps with the story and move the story forward, because instead of trying to spread too many plots so thin that it ends up diluting the episode. I thought that this episode was very, NewsFlash in particular, was very well done. It's very tight, and show is, to me, is getting a lot closer to what we fell in love with season 1 and 2.
Totally agree with that. What about you, Polly? Did you miss Cisco?
Yes, I actually did. I thought his, I didn't mind that he wasn't there for it, but if you remember in Death of Vibe, Caitlin wasn't around, and Caitlin, she was with Ralph. So if Caitlin is like Cisco's really close friend that we saw in season 1 and 2, and somehow they disappeared in 3, 4,
Mm-hmm.
But there should have been some connection there. I don't even care if it was telephone call. Like, he wasn't actually there,
Mm-hmm.
But there was absolutely no friendship there. She was like, oh, I died. Oh, well, I'm going to go mom and dad's house, who I absolutely hate. When's the last time that he went to his parents' house? It was for Dante's birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they hated each other. They couldn't stand it. So why go there?
Well,
Dante's dead now, because remember, we have Flash. We have
right, I know.
So.
I really thought that, like him not being there was just, it was like bad or lazy writing almost, because, he almost died the episode before, and then all of a sudden he's not there. It's like the only episode he wasn't in either, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys remember?
Yeah, it's the first time he's been in every single episode up to this point.
You think that there would have been some kind of connection, either, a phone call or, Caitlin wasn't there, so she was out with Ralph. So you think, since they were such good friends, that they would be coming back together, at least for a little bit, make sure he's okay. And, I don't know. It was last, and it was bad timing that he wasn't, he was barely mentioned as a second thought by Barry. Like, oh yeah, he's with mom and dad. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I never thought about the Caitlin Cisco thing, being a problem for some reason. Beyond just him being gone for the episode, it was very obvious that they hit the brakes on Caitlin's journey to learn more about what happened to her dad.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she was kind of just playing the role that she used to play back in season 1, when the episode didn't really when she wasn't really part of the A story. So, and again, I don't know why. Well, I think I know why, but for some reason I felt like it helped make this a stronger episode, because I don't know if I can handle another episode of Cisco being mopey.
I can't, yeah.
Yeah, it has been depressing.
Yeah.
But what did you guys think about the villain? Did you guys actually enjoy Spin? Yeah.
No, you go first.
You go first, Will. I did. I thought that it was a good villain because it was Iris West's villain.
Right.
And that's why it worked. Because and what was really obvious about this episode is that this isn't a Barry central episode. This is all about Iris West. This is about Nora, that relationship, that dynamic. And so I thought that the villain worked, and they especially made it work at the end when they tied in what happened to her with what was going on with Cicada to move that storyline forward. So for all intents and purposes, absolutely, I did enjoy this villain. Now, Ragdoll is going to terrify me in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Amen to that one. Me too.
Will, you're on your own to recap that episode. I'm probably not going to be able to watch it.
I will hold your hand and you can watch it. Okay, don't worry. We'll get through it together.
We'll be there for you. I hate dolls and I hate clowns, and I really don't like contortionists. This guy is amazing, though. I have seen him, on what was that, America's Got Talent or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, creeped me out. I'm like, oh my goodness.
The 20-second trailer, and I'm like, yeah, I'm out.
I'm surprised.
No.
Yeah, I hate it.
I was really surprised. Yeah, it wasn't the Halloween one.
Yeah.
But it makes sense because you can't understand that villain without having some of the context laid out in this episode.
Yeah.
Right.
But
I didn't enjoy Spin too much myself. I kind of cheapened his powers and made him a her. But I understand where it was Iris's villain and went forward. It just seemed like the basic. I know it's not on the comic books. Don't jump on me. But I'm just saying, it was good, but it wasn't as good as what he is.
Yeah.
And to me, it felt like they were starting to do the same things that they did last season, with the gender bending and the villains not really being what they are, but being what they want them to be. And it kind of was cheapened to me. But, I do understand the whole, this is getting Iris and Nora's story forward, and we can't go forward until we handle some of these situations, and should really help bring those out. So it was mixed for me. That's why I had to ask if you guys enjoyed it or not.
As far as villains of the week go, we've seen better, we've seen worse. Definitely better than the Block character from a couple weeks ago.
The Jello woman. That's what Michelle was calling her. Was Jello woman. Because why is she putting everybody in Jello? And I was like, I don't.
She will be forever known as your Jello woman. Thank Michelle for that one. But I agree with Sarah. It was good for Iris to have, because it did a couple things. One, it reinforced the fact that Iris is a journalist, because that has been put to the back burner way too many times in this series, and so in all of season 4, quite frankly, it seemed like. So it was good that was there. It also was good that it was a good way to utilization to introduce the meta tech, and because there's only so many ways that can have bus metas, particle accelerator metas. So now we have the satellite metas, and one of the offshoots from the satellite metas is this meta tech, which opens up the potential for some interesting ways that I think will play into how Cicada gained his powers from the satellite. So because it looks like he has some kind of mix of, clearly he is a victim of whatever what occurred during the Enlightenment. So how all those things sort of work together, they don't put those things out there for just the gee whiz moment. This is going to play into the overall big picture of the season, and also could potentially play into why Nora is here and how things changed in the timeline. So for those reasons, I thought Spin was, it's an okay villain, and it also gave us the opportunity to learn just a few more things about Nora as an individual, and so this character played several purposes, and I thought they all executed them all pretty well.
So what did you both think about the secret and the real rift between Iris and Nora that occurs in the future? I mean, is is Iris in the right? Is she in the wrong? Is it too melodrama-y? Is it just melodrama-y enough? I'm making up words now. All right. So Polly, what are your thoughts on Iris's decision to suppress Nora's powers in the future?
There's a few different things I can think of that why she would do this. Of course, we know Iris isn't just this mean-hearted, you can't do that type of person. But the one thing is that I was thinking, if Barry disappears, like all the newspapers say, and Nora obviously said, and Iris finds out that her daughter has the same ability that her father does, maybe it's too painful. You know what I mean? I know as like a mother of lots of kids myself, sometimes it hurts to see that my one daughter looks a lot like my sister Linda that passed away, and although I don't mean it to be like cruel or something like that, but maybe she did it so that she didn't remind her of Barry so much. And of course, the more that you try and get some kid to, not be something, they are something, you tell them not to listen to that rock and roll or whatever, and they listen to it as soon as you're gone. But, I mean, that's my thought. And, I know a few others had a few thoughts, that she's from a future where metas are said, they're repressed. They're not allowed to be metas, or they'll be captured, kind of like an X-Men type of thing. And so Iris had to do it in order to save her daughter. And I'm kind of leaning on the second one, a little bit more. But, I mean, that's my thought.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Will?
we early on in the season, we talked about the rift Nora and Iris and trying to figure out what caused it, and we are starting. Thankfully, they did not drag it out all season. I think so. Kudos to the writers about that, and I think I'm with Polly, and I know we talked about it too some as well, Sarah. With that, something I think the pain of losing Barry, I think definitely is driving some of why she put the chip in. I think I guess it was Legends of Tomorrow that had the other theory, where the metas are banned from using their powers in the future, a la X-Men, Avengers, etc., etc. The other thought I had is that clearly I think there's another unknown reason that we will learn throughout the season, and it could be the simple fact that Success is as we've seen so far, she's a lot like Barry, and Iris, knowing all the tragedies and all the things that Barry did early on in his career as a speedster, i.e. Flashpoint. I think Iris was concerned that, and rightfully so, that Nora would be reckless and try to go back in time and change the timeline. And for whatever reason, 6 months prior to her whenever Nora found out about her powers and discovering what happened, and reading some things in the Flash Museum and wanting to go back and change things so she could have her dad. That was probably another reason why Iris maybe just put that chip in there to keep that very thing from happening, which has now happened, which is Nora going back in time to save Barry. And as we all know, whenever you do that, consequences to the timeline are not good.
So in the death of Vibe, they dropped some information, or not dropped some information, that hinted at a new mystery in terms of why Nora appeared when she did, and why during the Enlightenment. Yeah, the obvious reason, her whole reason for being in the past is to be able to connect to her dad. So he has to be around, so she saved him. But I really liked the new Harry Sherlock hinting at, well, maybe there was another reason, another motivation, and I hope this leads back to Eddie Thawne. I pray to God it does.
There was a tattoo.
Yeah.
There's
Sorry,
the tattoo,
what?
the removed tattoo. I wonder if she had gotten Eddie's.
Why are you acting like I know what that means? You just you sound like a person, like, imagine, Will, you're on the street and you come across me and I just randomly say, there's a tattoo.
Well, I just thought you would remember the tattoo. I know it's been a couple weeks.
What are you talking about? Explain yourself.
Myself. Well, I was just picking up connection with Eddie Thawne, and so.
Yeah.
I'm not a nerd on your Flash chat thing. Tell me what I should know, people.
That's just my fault. That you were. I'm just picking up your point.
I don't get it. Polly, can you help him explain it to me?
Yes.
What's happening? Thank you.
Okay, Sherlock, however you say them. He told Iris, you had a tattoo on your shoulder, perhaps a deceased detective or ex-lover, or something like that. But it was basically hinting that she had Eddie tattooed on her arm or shoulder blade or something, and she had it removed. So Will is trying to say that maybe that's a foreshadowing of Thawne coming back, or
something,
something of that nature,
or something of Eddie. I mean, somehow Thawne has to, because as we know, obviously Eobard is in the future, so get into all the various convoluted timelines and whatever. Eddie has to come back and somehow be around in order to keep the Thawne bloodline going.
I get it now, Will. Polly explained it to me.
I was just putting the final on the point. But anywho.
So what are your guys' thoughts on the new Sherlock or Sherlock? I don't know how to pronounce it.
He doesn't either, because his accent drops in and out throughout the.
Oh, amen to that one. It's a disaster with his own accent. I'm like, if you couldn't do the accent and hold it, choose somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't really like him, honestly. He's a Ralph from last season. Honestly, if you think about it, he's distrustworthy. He has no respect for women, just like Ralph did. Because why would you have so many wives if you were respectful? And he's just sleazy. It's just like Tom and Harley's roles have changed. We have now Ralph acting more like Harry and Tom acting more like Ralph, and it got to me. It really irked me. The only thing that was nice was that he actually gave credit to where credit due and said, this was Ralph's idea. And I didn't expect that from him, honestly. I just expected everybody to keep praising him and he would be fine with it.
Yeah, I'm liking Ralph this season.
Yes, me too. This is the Ralph that I can handle.
Exactly. It is just the right amount of Dibney. No, don't overdo it. We don't need a full episode about him, and he doesn't need to die again. Oh wait, he didn't die. Come back. No. He's. They're doing him right. I actually liked the pairing of him and Sherlock, because they're like, of course that's a smart move, because they're foils of one another. I mean, they're both detectives, they're both sleazy, and have different, and I like how they clash, even though they're very similar. And again, they subtly push the main plot forward with their arc. And that's, we've always seen the Flash struggle. Like, sometimes their B and C storylines don't do anything. There's small purpose, but it really leads to a dead end almost. So like I said, I think this is overall one of the strongest episodes of the season, and I hope they continue to produce episodes like this moving forward. I understand some of your points, Polly. You do bring up some good ones, but I guess I'm just looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah. I mean, when I tell people that when I look at an episode, of a show, I look at it as its own, entity as much as I can. Now, Flash is hard for me because I get overzealous about everything, but it should be continuous from the beginning to the end. And if you've never seen or heard of the Flash before, you should be able to sit there and watch it. And of course, you're going to miss side plots, but you should know exactly what's going on. In this season, they have done that. You can pick it up from anywhere. Yeah, okay, so you might not know the whole story behind Nora, or why, Barry's acting this way, or Iris is frantically trying to be a mother to somebody her own age. But, you're going to get that plot from A to Z every single time. But, as a whole season, it has to tell that story as well. So these are like mini stories inside your chapter, inside of your novel. And they really have done a great job. Really pulled it out of last season. I wasn't quite sure. I was not excited at all for this season at all. I was like, I'm going to watch Arrow, I'm going to watch Legends, and that's going to be it.
Ooh, I have a question. Will. This is a great one. Okay, so at the start of the show, we teased your Halloween costume.
Yeah.
Question. Moving forward, every time we watch The Flash, are you going to wear your Flash costume?
That's a good idea.
I'll wear my Star Labs t-shirt. How's that?
Not the same. And also, you indirectly answered my question, and I'm a bit disappointed in you, sir. Bit disappointed.
I will wear my costume. I will take a picture and I will tweet it out so everybody can see me.
We need proof,
Wear my costume.
Talk about meta. The Flash, watching The Flash, tweeting about The Flash, wearing the Flash outfit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. But seriously, what are your final thoughts on the death of Vibe and NewsFlash?
You guys made some great points about Harry and Ralph and their. As far as this version, real quick, I think the one thing that I thought from Death of Vibe was with Wells was this, that he picked up something that Nora is hiding. We've seen that bullshit look like, or that shifty look multiple times now, either last season and this season. So I don't know if it's that. I mean, clearly she knows more than what she has let on. It's still too early for me to figure out or put out there what I think it is. But as we get more little morsels of information throughout the season, I will put my theory out there as far as what she's hiding, and hopefully I'm right, or maybe way off. We shall see.
Wait, you're not going to share your theory?
I'm still formulating it.
What?
It's a half-done formula on a whiteboard right now. He's not quite sure about the end result.
No. He gets me to drop like so many off
conclusions.
Random thoughts, and he's over here like, I'm not ready yet.
All I know is she's hiding something. I don't know what that something is, but it has something to do with Cicada. And
watch it drop it like next time that the Flash is on.
Yeah.
He'd be like, "Oh, I knew that. Yeah, that
exactly.
was my theory.
That was
100%.
it. Yeah. No, what I'll do is maybe like I did with like we did with the Savitar reveal. We'll have a point where we had put various theories out there, and then each week we can eliminate them via vote.
Go ahead and study, my friend, and when you're ready, when you're prepared, you can claim that you called it. It's obvious that Nora is a byproduct of the Enlightenment because there's still a mystery out there. Last season, why was she writing in her journal that code, which, if I remember correctly, was the same code that DeVoe had? So there's still some connection there. And that is all I'm going to say because, like my friend Will, I am still studying as well. I'm just a bit more brave than he is. So on that note, Polly, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you and learn more about all of your writing?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter, and I talk about it quite often at P_Machor, Machor. And I'm on Flash Chat on Tuesdays, Wattpad on Fantasy-Mom, if you're interested in that. And that's about it.
And Will, where can our listeners find you and your Flash costume?
You can find me and my Flash costume at Will Polk. That's WILLMPLK.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.